Tuesday, 30th of September 25, and this week the Labour conferences goes on. So it's mid-September. Parliament came back for 3 or 4 weeks. Now they're stopped for 3 weeks while the Lib Dems, the Tories, and Labour have their conference. I think Reform had theirs during while Parliament was sitting. Apparently, they just can't have these conferences without cancelling Parliament. They're just back from an 8-week holiday, and but they're also, especially the non-cabinet MPs, I find it frustrating that Parliament there's not enough time to debate laws and stuff, but holidays are holidays, so you need. Anyway, they've got this going on at the moment, and on Monday we had the speech from the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, and it was just so depressing, really, really insulting. No hope, really, that things are going to work out, really. That's the way I'm viewing it. And this is from the progressive side, apparently, the left. Yeah, I'm just talking about the sort of new situation that occurred in 1948 after years of evolution. We had a different type, a sort of revolution, an instant revolution that's been non-stop since, and one way, really. Yeah, we've never had a referendum on it, we never got a vote on it, and the only way you can do a referendum on it at the moment is by voting Reform, especially if you vote Labour, SNP usually, or whatever. SNP are most in favour of it, as Nicola Sturgeon recently pointed out. So, yeah, and there's a big council by-election. That's a big sign of how things are going in the country this week in Wigan Central, because it's the Labour stronghold of a Labour area, and if that goes to Reform, then Labour know that they're in real trouble, really, with the group that Shabana was mainly delivered most of her speech to, or was aiming most of her speech at, because here's a part of what she said. Let's see. Yeah, she talked about the march, about Tommy's march over 3 weeks ago, and she used the upper limit that the police said. The police said that they thought there was about 125 to 150,000 there. She used 150,000, so respect to her for that, because it was probably a lot more than that. I mean, Ben Habib reckons it was about 300,000. So does the guy from GB News, the sort of journalist guy. So really, we're probably talking about 300,000 or something. Tommy says about 3 million. No, well, 3 million, I don't know, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it was like a million or something, because I think a lot of people they got off their train or whatever, they realised that they weren't going to get anywhere and just went back home, so. But it was probably a lot more than 150,000 anyway, but she used the upper limit that the police used. So she was wanting to make that point. And like Clive Lewis said about this thing, he says he regards the march as far or whatever when these marches happen. But then when he watched it on TV, he saw a lot of his constituents, and he was thinking, they're not far. Well, either the march is far or it's not, make up your mind, really. Or they're saying, it's okay, they're just doing it for other reasons. We need to fix those other reasons, and then they'll continue with the way the country's changed, the 1948 project, But I don't think that's the way native Brits are thinking, really, and it is interesting, she used the term ethno there. It is interesting that, because I think Tommy describes himself as a civic nationalist, and I think that's what Shabana was implying for herself as well, that anyone can be British, as long as you take up certain values or whatever, I don't know. But anyway, so it was just depressing. I mean, if I was an advisor, and it's depressing to me, especially when these people get into power, and especially on the left, and then I would take that opportunity to thank the British people for letting my family come here, because it was really important to us to get here, you know, because it seems that our family didn't want to stay in Pakistan. We don't know why. Why did our parents not want to stay in Pakistan? Um, what countries did they consider moving to? Did they rule out countries? Did they rule out continents? If so, for what reason? That reason might be a bit shocking to some people, when you think about it. We don't know. But they chose Britain anyway. Um, why did they choose Britain? If it's been bad to them or whatever, why they still seem to like it, is it a bad place when you can become Home Secretary, Does it sound like anything stopped your way or whatever? Uh, but especially on the left, when they make these sort of speeches, to me they seem ungrateful, um, and just it makes me think about countries around the world and think, well, I can see how those countries, the people don't seem to want to. Well, you don't know if none of them want to live there, but it seems that way, and they don't seem to. They perhaps only want to move to a few countries and that. I don't know that for sure, but um, maybe people can check X posts and the likes. I've seen X posts that make me think. There was, yeah. Anyway, so she was saying something like, patriotism, a force for good, is turning into something somewhat smaller, something more like that, which struggles to accept that someone who looks at me and has a face like mine can truly be English or British. Um, and I suppose she means that as well for. But what would happen if all the native Brits left? Would that not do away with part of the main problem, really? That because our speech was mainly aimed at the native British, I would say, because it talked about the Tommy March. That's what it went on about, really, for about say about 80% of it was on immigration, our speech. Um, yeah, so maybe if those movie, and then it'd be still be a multicultural place. Uh, how do the people feel about that? Because then it should be even better, even more perfect. Um, but anyway, between 20, and then she said this other thing, between 21 and 24, we saw over 2.6 million more people enter this country than leave it. So that's net, but that means by gross, we're talking about 4 million, 5 million, probably 5 million, 5 million newcomers, most of them from, probably from non-EU, probably not from America, Australia, Canada, etc. Um, so she used the net, she didn't use the gross. So and this included widespread abuse of Boris Johnson's health and social care visa, which saw 710,000 people arrive here. It's interesting she's saying this because Zia Yusuf mentioned this as well, because his mother works in the social care still. She's in her 70s or something, but she likes it. So she mentioned this as well, and it's interesting that this is sort of insiders maybe telling us what it's like, or maybe previous Home Secretaries and whatever have been too scared to do anything about it. Does that ring any bells? Especially saying something like this. I mean, this a year ago by, say, Yvette Cooper might be a bit shocking, actually, if they were to say this, sort of widespread abuse, you know, of the health and social care visa, which saw 710,000 people arrive here. And I think hardly any of them actually ended up working in social care as well. Far too many have been able to enter this country and disappear into the black economy, a rank betrayal of the Tories' old promise that they would take control. So there you go. There's somebody telling it like it is. I mean, really, the left should be calling her the R word or implying the R word to her. They're having problems now because of Zia Yusuf saying, possibly Emperor's New Clothes situations, and they're not calling the R word. Although that female Labour MP, used the term for Sajid Javid, was it? I think she called him a coconut, or. So I mean, she's back in the party. She wasn't suspended for long. that's okay to say that, basically, it seems. Yeah, but it is interesting that Labour are saying this under a new Home Secretary, because we've just had the first mega dinghy across the channel this week with 125 newcomers on it. Almost all of them will probably end up British, because a very low amount to go back. It's like 3% or something, 4%. Um, yeah, although the Labour have done this new deal where they send one person, say if it's an Indian, instead of sending them back to India, they send them to France, and then France send another person from the third world who they think should be deserving of becoming British under Labour and Tories policies that we've got over the last 75 years, where the British people didn't get a referendum on it or anything. Um, so maybe that might have a difference, but I don't know. But I just wanted to point out her speech because it just went on about 80% of it was about immigration. She started off about the Tommy March, so she was speaking really to I would say the native British, saying you can't go on these marches really. But I just wanted to look a bit in her background. Yeah, just a speech focused heavily on immigration, border security, and national identity, with a central theme of restoring order and control to the UK's borders and immigration system. But what I'm interested in, I'm interested in it all. And one thing that Labour are doing is Keir Starmer on Sunday said that he thought reforms abolishing the indefinite leave to remain was R word, and but here then on a Monday, Shabana Mahmood says she's going to make it longer now, from 5 years to 10 years, and this is the grey area where you're on the conveyor belt to becoming a citizen after 5 years of being in the country. But she's saying she's going to make it 10 years, so that's a bit harder now to become a citizen. But I think we had a very soft thing there. Apparently Poland's was 3 years. After 3 years you had the chance of becoming a citizen. So and it's earned settlement, you need to be working, I think. That sort of thing. But it is surprising. I would guess that the left would like to call these the R word, really, these sort of new parts of the policy. But with her being Shabana, they might find that a bit difficult. And it is ironic that on Sunday, Keir said that reforms were R word, their policy on it, and here she's doing pretty difficult stuff as well. You quite have a clean criminal record. So yeah, she's talking about patriotism versus ethno-nationalism. Well, that's civic nationalism, which Tommy is really. If you listen to him, he does have a thing about one religion. He feels that it's difficult to see how they might go for those values or whatever. I don't know, but he is in general, I think, civic nationalist. Whereas she's saying ethno-nationalist. But I would be interested how Pakistan does on that ethno-nationalism. How does her parents do on it? Why did they want to leave Pakistan? That sort of thing. How would I try to look for an ethno-nationalist index? About how much fanatically ethnicities are feel about this. Because it could be like the people coming from other countries are very, very. They could be very, very low on this, and so they're very tolerant. Whereas the British people, the native British, are very ethno-nationalist, as she's talking about here. Who she feels that some on that Tommy March were not all, and why they're making differences now. I think in maybe a year or two ago they would have said everyone on that march was for, but this one there was too many that they can't really say it, because we've got the silent British native current majority. They've not had a referendum on this project since 1948 when it started. It seems that a lot of people want to come here, and there's a lot of countries in the world where people don't really want to stay, including the people who live there. It seems that way. I don't know if that's correct. We don't really hear of Corbynistas daughter's going to the University of Lahore or University of Islamabad or Delhi or whatever, and then hanging around to get citizenship or whatever. Yeah, just so she was talking about that. Yeah, she was saying it celebrates an open, tolerant, and generous country. And is it all Brits who are known for that, or is it just one group, or a few groups, or one region of the world, or are all Brits known for that? Really? She warned that without control, people would turn to the false promise of Farage. And there she goes. She mentioned Farage. That's good because that means she's saying to reform voters, you can't vote for reform really, or you're leading to a form of ethno. So there you go. Even though Zia Yusuf's are sort of the main, seems to be the main person of the party really. I wouldn't surprise me if he's dictating most of the policy on immigration and stuff. That would divide the country. So she feels that the British natives can't go on Tommy marches or vote reform because it'll divide the country because we're going in a utopian thingy. So for people out there, if you've got daughters or granddaughters or future granddaughters, you've got to think, are we going the right way? Or should I vote reform as a referendum vote on this? That's what I would say anyway. Especially if you vote SNP or Labour Green, especially, I think. I think you need to stop thinking of the old way. Well, anyway, I think so anyway. Yeah, it doesn't give the full address. Yeah, I just wondered her husband, because I don't mean this in any bad way, but I'd be interested if she is married. I would be interested if she's married to a cousin. Not in a bad way. I mean, if she done and asked me anything, which a lot of Western women like to do, she could elaborate on this. We don't really need to know this at all, but it would be interesting to know, because is that not sort of ethno sort of purity? If you're marrying your cousin, because the genes aren't varying that much, and we just had an NHS thing yesterday, announcement yesterday that cousin marriage can be good. So I'd like to know what Quango came up with that, or what group, who came up with that. We really need to know who came up with that, because I think British natives might think, hang on a minute, because genetically you can have a lot of real problems, genetic problems, a lot of, yeah, what's it called? Well, it's not dominant, it's the other, it's recessive, a lot of recessive genetic problems. So, oh yeah, they gave me the wrong one here. I was just wondering if it doesn't say anything, there's no information, but it would be interesting just so we know anyway, but if she is married, she's married to her cousin, that's it. Is she married to someone who's regarded as very ethnically similar, if it's not a cousin? You know, how important was that to her parents, or whatever? For what reason? That sort of thing. Because it feels like British natives have been judged continually on this, whereas everyone coming, the left tell us either they're very strong on women's rights and LGBT plus etc., or they're very malleable on it and they will become, and they'll probably always vote Labour or Green, although we've got Zia Yusuf now, but then we've also got Aspire Party in London, we've got 4 independent MPs, and that's going to probably grow greatly in concentrated areas, and all of them used to be Labour areas, and we've got the Newham Independents in the area next to Tower Hamlets, which is totally Aspire now, Aspire Party. I think they were all Labour areas. Yeah. So it doesn't say anything, we can't tell anything. And then I wondered if she went to private school. She said she didn't want to go to private school, but actually she did, because she went to her secondary school. Was King Edward V 6 or something, Camp Hill School for girls. And then I'm wondering, okay, it's for girls. I wonder the reason the parents sent her to a girls' school, if it is only girls, I think it still is. Is there any particular reason they done that? You know, because I would be interested, like, say, to parents send their kids there, their girls there, so that they don't interact with boys, either only during school hours or maybe all the time or whatever, that sort of thing. Um, but again, I don't think she'll ever do an Ask Me Anything on this. She might, Ask Me Anything, I think, is a very Western female thing, I would say. You don't have to, not everyone does, but a lot of Western females like to be totally open, but so I just wondered if it's still open, because there was a school in Glasgow that was a girls' school for 120 years or something, and about 4 years ago the council decided it had to become a unisex school, and I was wondering why. STV done a thing about it, but there was a question left about it, why, taking a look at, I'm wondering, has the sort of the type of girl that goes to the school, has it changed greatly over the last few decades, and are the council thinking, well, there might be a reason for that, although we don't know because nobody asks, maybe to keep them separate from boys or whatever, we don't know. Yeah, it's just all a mystery, STV didn't tell you anything about it, You just got to use your imagination, really. So that was 120 years of girls' school, because I would have thought there might, with our female MPs who have been going on about how misogynist the country still is, you'd think there's still maybe a role for girls' school. I don't know if there is, actually. I don't know if the girls would enjoy it, Do Western girls want to go to girls' schools? So I was wondering whether the Glasgow one, the sort of type of girl had changed really greatly, Anyway, we never found out in STV. So she went to that school aged between 11 and 18 in Birmingham. I think that's a private school. Or is it? Let's see. A grammar school, which is a state-funded selective school. So, no, it wasn't private, it's selected. So, I don't know. What's the difference? Is it still open? Yeah. Yeah, it's still open. Still for girls only. Yes, it's still for girls only. 11 to 18. Yeah. And I just wondered what sort of... Yeah, the thing. Here we go. This is the current type of thing who's going to this girls' school in Birmingham, and white British is 8.5%, which I personally I think is very low for a school called King Henry or whatever it was, and apparently it's meant to be a sort of Christian-based school, or it was traditionally. I would say so we've got Pakistani 27%, Indian 20%, 21%. Other Asians 7.8%, mixed 7.4%. So really, why are the parents sending them to those schools? Is there a particular reason? Is there a reason in particular? One reason? Can that be ruled out? It would be nice if in Britain we could find out, but we live in Britain. It's not a free speech country, especially under Keir Starmer. So we can't ask that question really. Let's get school uniform rules for headscarves. Yeah, so while it officially has a Christian religious character, it is non-denominational and highly inclusive. So there we go. And I just wondered if her parents were wealthy, because she was going on about how she worked in a shop till. She may be the first Home Secretary to be working a shop till. I don't think she is, actually, because I think, didn't Sajid Javid say that as well? Hello, Mum. Yeah, we're a long way from when I used to live above a shop or whatever, He said something like that. So she's not, I don't think. Um, maybe I'm misquoting her there. Maybe she didn't say who was the first. But yeah, I just wondered. Her father worked from 81 to 86. I think she said her parents came here in 1975, or was it 71? 75, I think. Maybe 71, because that's when the No, that's Bangladesh. I'm talking Pakistan. It's different. Um, he was working as a civil engineer on desalination, so that's not very shoppy. It's a small shop, you know. So, so I'd be interested if they came in 75. Was he an engineer in desalination already? Why did he leave? Why did he leave Pakistan? Did he not want to stay there? Is that not a bit of a brain drain? He came to Britain, apparently, she said, to have a better life. I mean, could they not have a good life there? Especially, were they not middle class at that time, or even upper middle class? I don't know. It seems he was doing well, but so he came here in 75, and then in 81 he was off to Saudi Arabia to work there on desalination. Oh, right, the whole family moved, right, from 81 to 86, and then they returned to England. So they got this British citizenship, I don't know when. 1980, 1979, I don't know. Maybe straight away, I don't know. Um, so they were over. After returning to England, her mother worked in a convenience shop that the family bought. The mother was a shopkeeper, and Miss Mummy herself worked behind the till as a child. But I'm wondering if this was just something to do, really, you know. Was it actually what they lived on, or was it just something to do? Because if the husband was a desalination civil engineer, you know, maybe his alone was enough to think me. Yeah, he was still full time, and he bought the corner shop and also became the chair of the local Labour Party. Uh, but anyway, and ask me anything would, you know, it would mean we could understand better, you know, especially since she seems to be talking to native Brits for most of her speech about the Tommy March and that, you know, which we're meant to think of as, I mean, Tommy's pointed out there was lots of non-whites there, etc. Like I say, he's civic nationalist, and basically Shabana's saying she's the same civic nationalist as well, you know, but she doesn't realise. But why did her parents come to Britain? Yeah, in pursuit of a better life. That's what she said. So that doesn't tell us. I mean, could they not have a good life in Pakistan? What countries did they consider? Did they specifically rule out countries and continents? If so, for what reason? Um, could that reason be upset the left, you know, in particular? Why? What countries did they rule in? How did they perceive those countries? Say Britain in 1975, uh, you know, that sort of thing. I know that she's been to, about 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago she was over in the place where the Syrians were coming over in the boats. Not just Syrians though, Afghans. Everyone actually was coming over as far as I know, from Turkey to Greece. She was down there at the time helping with sandwiches and stuff, you know, and here she is now saying she's going to stop the boats. She calls them, should be called dinghies. Um, yeah, it was just disappointing to me, especially the left, when the left newcomers from the left come up from. Uh, to me, it always seems ungrateful. It doesn't look as if it's going to work out, you know. They don't seem to understand. It makes me think. I can see now how a lot of countries around the world don't seem to be places that people want to live. You know, I don't know that until it is a feeling people get though. You know, because it seems one-way migration to Britain. You know, it's not really reciprocated, not even by generations later or whatever. You know, yeah, and so I was just sad, really, and I felt the same way. You know, when you saw others getting elected to high office. Not so much on the Tory side. You know, the Tory side, they seem to be grateful, and you know, because Rishi Sunak's just been Prime Minister. On the right, they seem to be more grateful. Zia Yusuf seems to be an emperor's new clothes. He's on this, and even Shabana's been an emperor's new clothes on some of this as well. You know, that she's shifted Labour on the illegal side of it quite a bit. She's shifted the rules for the legal side, which really is going to make it quite a bit harder for people who want to come here. Not enough to put most off. I'm talking about maybe 20% maybe put off or something, but for ones that just want to come and live on benefits straight from the off or whatever, it's going to be like very difficult now. So yeah, that's it really. It was just depressing and that, especially on the left, because it is surprising. The left always seem to be ungrateful or whatever. The first thing I would do if I was in their position would say, I want to thank the British people for kindly letting my parents come here and for being so good to us. We love this country. We love the native Brits. We think being a multicultural, mainly from certain parts of the world, is going to be a big success story. Well, anyway, but we'll never forget how good the Brits were, the native Brits were to us, etc., etc. That's the way I would come at it. But instead, she was saying people going in the Tommy March or who voted for him or basically R words. She didn't actually say that. She said somewhere, or if you vote for Raj, then what was it she said? Wait a minute. And also, is it not a brain drain from these countries? I think that's what George Galloway says. Is it for the Workers' Party's attitude? Is it while he's leader anyway? I don't know. I think the Workers' Party will just disappear really because they've got two groups really. But I think that other group are going to start voting their own parties. They've got a candidate in Blackburn who beat the Workers' Party. I've got one who nearly beat one in Newcastle area, I think. Was that a council election? I can't remember, but yeah, I think the Workers' Party are finished with that group probably, especially when they find out his view on immigration, because I think his view is tougher than the Tories or even Reform until recently. Yeah, just looking at that, I just wanted to see what she said about Farage again. I mean, she didn't want. I don't think she wanted to refer. I don't think she actually said Reform, did she? I think she wanted to skip that and just focus on the march. But she wanted to say something about Reform. Really, you can't vote for them. Really, if you are, you're being not nice. Apparently, you're being unacceptable. Let's see. Yeah, and it is. Yeah, false promises of Farage leading to a form of ethno-nash. So there you go. If you vote Reform, that's what she's saying. You're not like you're, you know. So, and she's saying patriotism. I would call that civic nationalism. It's the same thing maybe. So is patriotism. Well, you know. Anyway, personally, well, I'll just that's all for now. Bye.